My family said, hey, enough's enough. You need to go get treatment. And I kind of fought it, thinking I could do it myself. And then I realized, no, I can't. I've been trying to do it for 2 years and I haven't been able to beat it. So, yeah, maybe I do need to lean on somebody else. And thank God I did.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another It's Okay podcast. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and today I am extremely pleased to be welcomed by Steve Wheatcroft, a PGA Tour professional who's going to be discussing the mental health aspect of the game, himself, life, and life on the tour, inside and out, beyond the line or the ropes and inside the ropes and everything that you've gone through over the last few years, and obviously a program that you've started, an initiative that you have started that you're going to get into about helping amateur athletes with the mental health side, which I think is going to be interesting for people to hear about. So thank you so much for joining us for this, and welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I appreciate you having me on.
So I came across you. I was watching the Golf Channel a few weeks ago, and you were on a morning show, Five Clubs with Gary Williams, and it's probably going to be a lot of the conversation you and I are having. Obviously, you have a good relationship with Gary. It sounds like you're pretty tight. So
Yep.
it sounded like a pretty good, easygoing conversation, and that's what this is going to be about as well. Like it's mental health, as you know, is a pretty heavy topic, or can be from time to at times. But we want to keep things as light as possible. And if somebody sees one of these podcasts and is just like, maybe just tweak something in their mind that either they need or might need to look into something for themselves or a family or friend or something, is just, that's what we're hoping for. And before we came on, I'd mentioned like it's hard to believe that a real estate agent in Ottawa can relate to a PGA Tour professional living in Florida. But when I watched that interview with you and Gary, there was a couple things that I was like, I can relate to what Steve was going through, even though we have totally different lives and industries. But yeah, mental health. So let's start with your background and how you got into golf.
Yeah, I was one of the outdoor kids, right? So I was playing baseball, basketball. I skied, played volleyball, did any kind of outdoor sport I could get my hands on. I was always outside. Slowly started dwindling them all down, and by the time I got to high school, I realized it was either going to be baseball or golf that I wanted to pursue, maybe at the collegiate level. And I was a decent baseball player. I was a decent golfer. I wasn't good by any means. Um, but honestly, I got tired of some of the politics in baseball, so I just figured, hey, golf is kind of a self-made sport where if you go out there and you shoot 67, 68, nobody can tell you no, nobody can play politics, like your score is going to win. And I always liked that part of the game, kind of eat what you kill kind of mentality. And that's why I stuck with golf. And I was going to play at a very small school back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I grew up in college. And I went to Indiana University to look at it just because they had a really good business school, and I figured I'd get into the golf or the sports world somehow when I got out of college. So a business degree was going to go a long ways in helping that. And I asked the coach for a walk-on tryout, and he told me no. And then he told me no about 5 other times, and then I think he got tired of seeing me and said he'd give me a tryout and cut me after 6 months. And I figured I'd at least get to hit range balls for 6 months and then get my business degree. So I decided to go to Indiana University and play there. So I played pretty well. I played well enough the first year that he kept me on the team the whole year and just told me to go home, play some bigger tournaments, try to get my resume built up a little bit, and we'll see what happens in the fall. And I came back in the fall and ended up qualifying number one on the team. I beat out our first team All-American, and just something had clicked that summer where I started to play better golf more consistently. And not that I was a world beater by any means in college, but I had a couple good years towards the end, and I was all Big Ten, but I never even thought about playing professional golf. To be honest with you, it just wasn't even a thought. I just looked at guys like Tiger Woods or any of those. Ernie Els at the time was huge. I looked at those guys as they were like mythical human beings. Like they were so far better than I was, that it wasn't even on my radar. And then my last semester, the kids that I've been playing with from all these different schools kept saying that they were going to turn pro when they graduated college, and I couldn't figure out what they were going to turn pro at because they weren't very good, and I wasn't very good, and just the thought of them even turning pro, I was laughing at, and so I said maybe I should try this, and tried turning I did turn professional. I played on some mini tours for a little while. I almost quit about 300 times, just because I didn't think I was good enough, and but then the second year got a little bit better than the first, and the third year got better than the second. And I just kept getting better each year, just learning from other guys and learning the travel. And then I finally got on to what's now the Corn Ferry Tour. Back then, I think it was buy.com or Nationwide. And then the following year, I got onto the PGA Tour somehow. And, that was 2000, the end of 2006 was when I got my huge break. I got onto the PGA Tour for the first time. And then I bounced back and forth between those two tours for the next 14 years.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where I got to start and the whole progression up through the ranks. But yeah, I never thought I'd play in one professional golf event, let alone I think I finished at about 350 of them.
Wow.
So it was a pretty cool run for a little while.
Yeah. And now you're settled in Jacksonville, Florida. Uh,
Yep.
family or like anyone,
Yep.
anyone kicking
Married,
around?
two kids. I got a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, 10-year-old boy, 8-year-old girl. They're wonderful. Been married for what, 13 years now? No, sorry, I'm gonna screw this up.
I won't
Almost
hold
12
it to
years
that.
now. Yep, I keep getting the dates like when we met and when we get married. So yeah, 2013 we got married. So, but yeah, wonderful family. And yeah, I got out of the game of golf. Just figured it was time. I was burnt out. I just didn't want to play anymore, to be honest, which was weird because the passion that drove me for so many years was just kind of gone. And I was tired of being on the road. I was tired of missing cuts. My body was starting to get beat up a little bit with all the travel and just with getting older. And so yeah, I just decided to hang it up at the end of 2019. And to be honest, I didn't miss it, which was strange. I thought I was really, really going to miss it, and I didn't miss it at all. I got a job in the financial world as a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, and was working with them for about 2.5. I guess I finished about 3 years, a little over 3 years with them. So that was kind of the next step right after golf.
So for somebody that's not, and I actually I love golf. I golf probably way more than my wife wants me to, but the life of a PGA Tour professional that is like we're not talking about the Rorys or the Bryson. Well, not the Bryson's a PGA Tour pro, but you know what I
Yep.
mean. The profession, like the high end
Yep.
players. What would the life of a player that's 125th to 110th on the money list, like what would a week look like, and what would a life look like for those players?
Yeah, more times than not, if you're in that position on the money list, you have to be playing any week that you get into the field, more or less, because you need to get up there. You need to move up in the rankings to keep your job for the next year. Because if you don't keep your job, for those that don't know, the top 125 guys that finish on the money list, those guys get to keep their job for the following year. If you finish behind that, you basically have to go back down to the Corn Ferry Tour status, which doesn't sound terrible, but it's about a 94% pay cut. So picture your job now and then going to do the exact same job across the street, same hours, same everything, but you're going to get paid 6% of what you did the year before. And you'd actually sign up for that job, right? Because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very stressful to be out there. But yeah, the guys that are finishing 110th to 125th are playing any week they get in. So if you have to play 4 or 5 weeks in a row, you're going to go play 4 or 5 weeks in a row. So Monday was usually the travel day. You fly from one city to the next. You get settled with your new courtesy car. You get settled in your new hotel room. Maybe if you have time, get there early enough, you can go hit some balls, practice. But Tuesday was practice round day. You get out there early, you hit balls all day, play a practice round, hit balls again, go to the gym, go to the physios, whatever you need to do, full day. Wednesday was pro-am day, so you either play in the pro-am or you just practice. And then Thursday, Friday is the tournament. Hopefully you make the cut, play Saturday, Sunday, and then pack up Sunday night or Monday morning and do it all over again.
And as a PGA professional, you are basically a contractor, right? Like you like
Yep,
there's your
independent contractor.
so what if any support did the PGA Tour or would they have any support for players for mental health or anything like that? Is there anything or was there anything back then when you were on the tour, and has that changed at all?
Way before I got on the tour, they used to have a woman that was out there traveling with the tour. And everybody kind of knew her. She was around week in, week out.
Like a counselor almost?
That was, yeah, a counselor, therapist, clinician of some kind. But she was out there long before I was there. So I would have said she'd probably left in the mid 90s. When I was out there, it was a lot of online resources available. So they had, they partnered with a few different groups where you could go on there and you could be calling their helplines or whatnot. And, they would, they didn't cover the financial responsibility of it. Like we would have to do that, but they had accounts and we could get in there quickly and talk to somebody immediately. Uh, and I mean, it's okay. It's nice to have them there. I don't think they were utilized at all. But technically, I guess they did check the box of having something there for us.
And what about now? Has it changed at all, do you feel, or?
No, now they've got the same resources. Maybe they've added a few more. Then they just hired a sports psychologist to be out there, sports therapist to be out there with the tour. And I believe she's only traveling 1 week a month with the tour, and she's only out there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays of that 1 week. So she's only out there 2 days a month, which if you're trying to crack some of the hardest inner circles in sports to crack, it's not going to be the easiest thing to get out there and get warm and fuzzy with the players and establish a good relationship with them where they're going to want to talk to you about some of their, deepest, darkest secrets or things that are going on in their lives. And so it's checking another box, and they have somebody out there if you need them. But from what I've been hearing, it's been a lot of, when they do go see her, it's usually like a 4 alarm fire where everything's out of control already, and instead of any kind of preventative maintenance going into their mental health.
But as a contractor, you're basically on the hook for your own support. Like you would have your own caddy, your own coaches, and your own mental health
Yep.
professionals. It's all on you.
Yep.
So when
Exactly.
you're new to the tour, or not a $10 million a year player, it sounds like you probably was spending a lot of time doing your own thing, like just spending a lot of time on your own, or whether
Yep.
you're with a spouse or a partner, but or a caddy, probably spent a lot of time on your own.
Yeah, it's a very isolated existence out there, and it's gotten way worse even since I was, finished up. So my first few years out there, from like the '06 to maybe 2012, 13, something like that. There was some camaraderie out there where you'd get done, you'd play practice rounds with other guys, you'd talk about going to dinner or doing something that night, you'd go to one of the pro-am parties and just hang out with other guys, and maybe somebody, a musician's playing somewhere, or you just get to kind of hobnob with some of the celebrities or some of the sponsors that were there. Just get out of your hotel room, go have a fun night out, grab a dinner on them. And but then as the years went by, it became a lot more of a business out there where, as I said, when you go through your weekly routines of the practice rounds and the practice out at the golf course and the physio work and all the stuff out there, then by the time you're done, you just go back and you sit in a hotel room, and most guys sit there and stare at their phones, stare at their iPads, and it's fine as long as you're in a good place mentally. But if you're out there on week number 3, 4, 5 in a row, now all of a sudden you're kind of in a dark place. You're missing a lot of cuts. You're missing your family. You haven't seen friends in forever. You're having all these phone calls about, hey, why aren't you playing better? Hey, buddy, hang in there. Your putting's going to come around, or what's going on with the golf game. And it's like it's a lot of negativity just pounding at you at all times. And there's no real place to turn and talk to. It's not like he could, turn and talk to his wife at dinner, or, go out and grab a beer with one of his best friends and just sit there and talk about things and get it off his chest. So like you have to like internally, I mean, most guys out there just internally keep that build up. And I mean, it wears you down. I mean, you can turn on any PGA Tour event and you could watch guys going through it. And if there's a ton of anger being shown out there on a Thursday or Friday, it's usually not because they're playing that badly. It's because they've got, they came to the golf course angry, and it doesn't take much to set them off. You shouldn't be that angry on a Thursday when you're just getting started with your tournament. And that's where a lot of this stuff is. When you can see stuff like that happening, I wish it's not even the tour's responsibility, but at the same time, there's such a stigma out there about working on your mental health and how it's frowned upon and how you're soft if you do that. And you could have 17 different people on your team between trainers and a chef and a nutritionist and whatnot, and nobody thinks twice about it. But heaven forbid you put a mental health, therapist on your staff, and it's like, whoa, you got problems, huh? You got mental health issues, huh? It's
Hmm.
like, no, I just really like to talk to somebody about some things, and why not a trained professional that can actually help me, work through some of those feelings instead of keeping them built up for months at a time when I'm traveling.
And when you left the tour, I think you said 2019. Would you
Yep, the
say
end
it
of
was
2019.
was it mostly because of the mental strain on that was caused? I mean, obviously
Yeah,
it would have
I
been
mean,
great if
just
you.
mental, physical. It was one of those things where it was, the come to Jesus moment, so to speak. It's like, okay, I'm 40, whatever I was, 41, 42 years old at the time. It's like, I'm not getting any younger. These kids that are all 21, 22, they come out there with, no wives, no kids, no responsibilities other than go to the gym, make themselves the best golfer they can. They're young, they're flexible, they recover faster. And I'm old, I'm getting beat up with random injuries that keep popping up. And, I was never a long hitter to begin with. So I had to kind of outthink people, outputt people, things like that. And I just got tired of the grind. When I started coming home and it's like, okay, I got to go practice. And I really just don't want to go practice right now. I don't want to go hit golf balls. I'm just tired. I'm worn out, and it just doesn't seem like something I want to do. And if you don't have that fire, it's best to just walk away because you can't kind of half-ass that job, for lack of a better term. You can't, put 50% effort into it and think you're going to be one of the best golfers in the world. It's just not the way that works. And I was okay with it. Like I said, I was fine walking away because I missed, I was FaceTiming my kids during their birthday parties, and I'm like, this isn't any way to live. I'm missing all these moments at home, and my son signed up for baseball, and I'm missing games left and right because I'm out in some town on the West Coast missing cuts, and I couldn't get a flight home, and I have to stay out there because there's another event out there on the West Coast the next week. And as much as I'd want to come home, now I've got 3 days to kill in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I don't know anybody. And yeah, it's like you talk about some bad thoughts, just isolated in your hotel room, or heaven forbid you do go out there to the course to practice, then you feel like a schmuck because you're out there taking up range space, even though you're not in the tournament anymore. And just little things that wear on you over and over. But yeah, just to answer your question, I was just mentally and physically just tired and over it and burnout.
What is your, and we can get into the Mulligan Foundation now or in a
Yep.
few minutes, but what is your connection with the game of golf right now? Like what would you
No, that's a good question.
and has your passion for it come back at all?
Yes, it has a little bit. We probably need to touch on kind of the middle bridge there because that's where things kind of went up and down. So about maybe mid 2022, we'll call it. I was in the financial services industry, like I said, and I started to not feel right. I just wasn't. I started waking up feeling depressed and like just down in the dumps all the time, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I just figured I was in some weird funk, and I'd work myself out of it, and but then it just kept lasting, and it kept getting worse and just deeper and darker, and then I don't know, I didn't know how to address it, and then I had a big case with, it was supposed to go through for me, and it didn't go through. And we kind of needed the money as a family. And he texted me that morning and said he was going to hold off on doing it, even though we had the meeting scheduled later in the day. And I had a panic attack, and I started, getting sweaty. My heart rate started spiking, and I was the only one in the house, and it was 7:15 in the morning. And I walked over and I poured myself a vodka with a splash of OJ on top, and I sat down. I turned on Sports Center, and I sat there for about 20 minutes trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do. But at the end of that 20 minutes, I realized I was like, man, I'm actually really relaxed right now. And so I walked over and I poured another one. And I think I showered and poured one to take to the office with me. And that became a way of life. And I'm not proud of that, but that's my story. And that's what led me to where I'm at now. And I was a full fledged alcoholic for the better part of 2.5 years, maybe, where it didn't matter if it was morning, afternoon, evening. If I wanted a drink, I was going to pour one. I was never sloppy drunk. My own wife didn't even know, just because I would never get out of control with it. But I was buzzed for the better part of 2 years, and I hated myself. I hated, I'd go to try to play golf tournaments for fun with guys, and I'd shoot 80 or 82 or something ridiculous, and I'd feel so terrible about myself that of course I'd just go in and drink more. My body started to deteriorate. I got big and fat or fatter than I already am. Um, but yeah, I started just having health issues, and I was in the hospital a bunch, and usually it was liver related, some way or the other. And I tried stopping, and the doctor basically told me that if I had another drink, I could die. So I stopped for about 2 months and was doing okay with it actually. And then I had the first sign of any big stress again. I was driving to go meet with some family actually for a holiday, and I was by myself in the car. And I got a phone call I didn't like, and I pulled over and grabbed another bottle and drank all weekend, and we were back up and running again. And I kept going for another, oh, I don't know, almost another year like that. And finally, my body was just giving out. I was in the hospital again, and my family said, hey, enough's enough. You need to go get treatment. And I kind of fought it, thinking I could do it myself. And then I realized, no, I can't. I've been trying to do it for 2 years, and I haven't been able to beat it. And so, yeah, maybe I do need to lean on somebody else. And thank God I did. But yeah, I was in a treatment facility for about 35 days and came out, and I knew the drinking wasn't the problem. It was just I was masking something, and I just used that to numb everything where I didn't have to face life and face the hard decisions. But it was just a full-blown identity crisis where I didn't know who I was anymore. It's not that I missed golf. I just missed being that guy. I missed being the golfer, because it was since I was 12 years old, I was Steve the golfer, and that's how I was known everywhere, because that's what I did, and that's who my persona was, and I took all my self worth and put it into that guy. And when that guy wasn't there anymore, I just didn't respect myself. And so, to answer your question about the game of golf, I hated the game of golf for a few years because I was so bad at it. And I used it as a place to go hang out with some friends and drink and goof off. But I mean, I was a really bad golfer, and I've gotten the love back again for just playing golf for what it is and for having fun. And the scores are coming back. I did shoot 66 on Friday, so there is a little bit of talent still floating through some of the hands here. But now I just do it for fun, and I mean, I've been sober over almost 13 months now. I don't miss the drinking at all. I knew, like I said, I didn't love the taste of alcohol enough to do what I did. And I knew that wasn't the issue. I had to tackle the issue at hand, which was, why do I hate myself? Why do I have identity issues? So now that life is good again, and I'm starting to enjoy the game for what it is and what it should be, and I'd love to get back to competing. By no means not at the PGA Tour or even the Champions Tour level, but I'd love to compete in like some local events, just things like that, just something to get the juices flowing again, to have fun with the game. No intention of winning, no intention of being out there grinding on the driving range all day practicing, but
Hmm.
just to play the game for the love of the game.
Yeah, and a little bit of the competitive side. You still have a little bit of
I mean, I'm
competitiveness?
competitive with anything. I can't let my son beat me at a game of basketball. I can't let him outrun me. I mean, I can't. I still have some ego in there, and
Yeah,
what little's left, I have to hold on to. So yeah, I'm very competitive with everything I do. So I mean, I'll try to win when I'm out there, but at the
yeah.
same time, I'm also smart enough to know that I can't really get angry about not playing well since I don't practice, and
Well,
so
66 is no joke. I mean, if you,
no, it was
it's
good.
still
It
it's
felt
still in
good.
there.
There haven't been many of those though. I can
Yeah,
promise you. It's usually right around par every time, but I'll
yeah.
take that too.
At least it's not
It's not
80 or
82.
82.
Yeah. So I'll take it.
But yeah, congratulations on your 13 months. I'm like I don't want to gloss over that at all. I know that's a huge accomplishment. So congratulations on that. And I know
Thank you.
it's every one day at a time is a real thing. So
Oh
um,
yes.
when I was watching you on with Gary and even talking here now, like again, you go back to how does this 51-year-old real estate agent in Ottawa relate to a professional golfer in Florida? It's like there's many ways, and trust me, a lot of stuff that you said there resonated with me. And hopefully, when people watch these podcasts, it doesn't matter what I do for a living or you do for a living. It's just if you got through something and you were
Yep.
able to drop some nuggets of help or information, you have no idea who it's going to help. And
Yep.
it's probably that's a little bit to segue into what you're doing now with the Mulligan Foundation, is to just drop some nuggets of information on people, right? Like it's if you can go into some detail about that, because that's a if there's a sport out there, and I know it probably touches on a lot of different sports, but golf is obviously an extremely mental sport.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, to piggyback off your point here, and it's a perfect example. So when I got clean last year, I came out of the treatment facility. It took me honestly about 2 months to realize who I was again, and I was on pins and needles at all times. I just felt different, but I'm like, I need to just make sure I'm good here, and I was fine, no issues at all. I mean, knock on wood, no issues at all with drinking, not wanting to drink. But once I realized that everything was good, my faith was good, my family was good, my friendships, hobbies, everything else was good around me. I felt like I was still missing something, like I needed to do something else. And I reached out to some guys that are on the PGA Tour, whether it was caddies, agents, players, and just said, "Hey, look, man, here's my story. Here's what I went through. Uh, do you think it would help the guys out there to hear that another player went through this? Because I know with Grayson Murray, that's I needed to hear his story, and it meant a lot to me to hear what he went through. And I actually reached out to him at one point for help. Um, and every one of them to a T was like, "You have no idea how bad it's gotten out here. Yes, your story would go a long, long ways." So I started crafting up this letter, and it took me a while to do. And then one day, it just all came out, and I just poured the whole thing out into a letter. And I was getting ready to take it to the tour to have them send it out over, email to the tour players. And at the last minute, I just decided that more people needed to see it than just, 200 PGA Tour players. So I put it on Twitter for some reason. And I hit send, and I got flushed really fast, and I couldn't figure out what I just did and why did I just do that. And so I took the dog for a walk because I couldn't look at my phone. I was afraid to see what was about to happen, and I came back in about an hour later, and 100,000 people had already seen it. And I had voicemails and texts from 500 people already. And yeah, it got real very fast. And I think about 3 million people ended up seeing it on Twitter alone. And to your point, it just goes to show how hearing someone else tell a story, how everybody can relate to it. And, they always say mental health affects 1 out of 5 people. No, it doesn't. It affects 5 out of 5 people. Like everybody's dealing with something. Nobody's life is perfect where they're walking through it going, I have no issues. Like everything's great. If you meet that guy, be careful. He's the serial killer, right? Um, but no, it was amazing to me how many people opened up, and I had all these private messages from people that I'd never even met before. But it was, hey, I've been a full blown alcoholic for 5 years. After reading your letter, I haven't had a drink in 4 days. I can't remember the last time I didn't drink for 4 days. You're an inspiration, more than you'll ever know. Yeah, well, like stuff like that, and it's just like melts my heart that this actually did do something positive, even if nothing else came of it. Just to hear the outpouring of support. And I went back and forth with a lot of these people, and I'd still check in with a bunch of them to make sure they're still good. And but yeah, it's been really, really cool to see the impact just telling a story has. And as I tell people in the foundation that I started, you never know when someone's going to tell a story that sets off your antenna, so to speak, and go, oh my God, that's exactly what I was thinking, or that's exactly how I feel, and I didn't think anybody else thought that way, or I didn't think anybody else was doing those things like I did. And then you realize you're not alone, which is a huge thing, because once you get into that darkness, you feel like you're alone. And I was a very outspoken, outgoing guy for years, and then when I started getting into my depression stage and my alcoholism stage, I was just looking for isolation anywhere I could find it. Just let me be by myself with a drink in my hand, and that was the best time of my days by far. And so you can go down a really dark rabbit hole really fast if you're not careful. And but it's amazing when you hear people talk for the first time and go, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I did." And I thought I was the only one doing this crazy stuff. And then you realize, nope, there's a lot of people out there suffering, but you need to hear it from other people. And the only way you hear it is if somebody talks.
People like to are open to talking about mental health, but they definitely don't want to be the one to start the conversation. And what's led to what we're doing here is I ran some events over the last couple of years with a mental health, like raising funds for mental health awareness, and people would ask me like, "Why are you doing this?" And I would talk about like, "Oh, because I've been working through some things." And as soon as I'd say that, it'd be like switch goes off, and some of the things that came out of people's mouths that I did not expect to hear in a positive way was like would never have happened if I hadn't have said I am dealing with something or I have gone through something. And it's
Yep.
to speak to what you did with your Twitter account, like sending that out, like taking that first step probably opened up a floodgate of people being like, "Oh my God, like I can relate or I can support or something." So
Yep. Very, very much so. It was amazing. And the social media is such a dark place now. You can get, I mean, there's people up there that just hate on everybody for everything. If you said, "Hey, I ran into a burning building and saved 10 cats," they're like, "Well, where's the dog? You didn't save the dog." Um, that's just the way it works. But honestly, I didn't get one negative response from that letter, which was amazing. And I had, like I said, 3 million people had seen it, and I got response, like tons of responses from it, and not one negative feedback, which was crazy.
yeah,
But it just goes to show, I mean, it is an important subject. It is a very important topic that people just don't talk about.
yeah,
And because there is such a stigma behind it. And that's, when I got done with, when the letter came out, obviously that changed things quickly. And I originally tried to work with the PGA Tour as kind of like a bridge role between the mental health resources they already have and the players themselves. Just kind of be a liaison, like, "Hey, boys, you guys, most of you guys know me. Here's my story. Here's what I went through. Here's why you guys need to stay ahead of this thing, and I'm here to help. Everything's confidential. I'm not trying to fix anybody, but I'm a shoulder to, I'm an ear to talk to, and then I'll refer you guys to where you need to go and make sure that you guys are getting the help that you need." And unfortunately, it didn't work out with the tour. I guess fortunately for me, it didn't work out with the tour, because now we're able to not only address the PGA Tour guys, but also like the junior ranks. And the more, I traveled with the PGA Tour a little bit this spring just to see it firsthand. And it's just as I said earlier, it's a business out there now. It's not friendly. It's not fuzzy. It's not like, there's nothing easy about it. And I just said, look, I could beat my head against the wall trying to get these guys to understand where I was at, but nobody's going to go public with it anyway. Or we could start kind of at the grassroots level and start with the first tee program, the AJGA, the collegiate ranks, the even the mini tour guys, the guys that are younger that they haven't had this stigma just burned into their brain for years. If we're teaching a 14, 15-year-old kid about the importance of mental health, and they start working with a mental coach of some kind, by the time they're 22 or 23 and they're on the PGA or LPGA tours, now all of a sudden that person's a part of their team and has been for
hmm
7 or 8 years already.
or
So
at
it's
least
not
talking about it is common.
correct. Yeah. And it's like, if we can make people start talking about it at an earlier age, then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, that's normal. And why is he playing such good golf? He works with so and so, and she's out here every week, and she really helps him with his mental game. Perfect. I'd like to start working with her too. One of those things. It's like, and the PGA Tour's gotten a little bit of that. Wyndham Clark had a big thing on Netflix with Full Swing, and when he was working with Julie, and that opened up some doors and broke down a little bit of the barrier. Obviously, any kind of national attention like that is great for it, but at the same time, it's still so predominant out there. And I'm not here to judge anybody. If people want to be quiet about it, if they don't want to, attack their own mental health, so be it. Like, everybody lives their own life, but my whole goal is just to tell stories. And as I tell my guys out there, it's like, look, I'm not a licensed clinician by any means.
hmm
Like, I'm licensed in missing cuts, I'm licensed in traveling 30 weeks a year, I'm licensed in being an alcoholic. I can tell you all about my life experiences and tell you like where I wish I had done things differently and who I would have talked to, how I would have gone about it. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I can fix all your problems. But I do have a really good team behind me that can help with all those issues. So if you have a problem with performance anxiety, substance abuse, any of those things, we've got doctors and clinicians that are ready to help, and they're all great people. So
Yeah. Oh, it's
that's kind of my
fascinating.
role in this thing, is just to create the awareness and tell my story and get people's mind open up to, wow, this is something I probably do need to address.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to end up the same way Steve did at one point, or heaven forbid, I don't want to end up the way Grayson ended up.
hmm
So, if there's two examples and there's two glaring examples in the game of golf, maybe it's time to do something different, because, it's not like I signed up for it or Grayson signed up for that kind of depression, anxiety, whatever it might be that comes along. But, if both of us had gotten the help that we needed early and worked on it, I don't think either one of us would have ended up in a bad place.
Yeah. Well, it's commendable what you're trying to do, because you're right. It's just these conversations hopefully lead to positive outcomes. So
Yep.
I'll wrap up. I do have a question I want to ask you at the end, but if you have time to quickly go through your experience at the 2016 Canadian Open. being from
Yeah.
Canada, you started talking about it earlier. I was like, let's hear about this a
That's
little
good. We'll
bit
bring this
more.
up at the end, which will lead me back into drinking and depression and the whole
Yeah,
thing,
that's my
right?
goal here.
Yeah, I always tease my kids that I said when they came to visit me at the old man home, when I'm 92 years old and they come in and they say, "Hey, how's dad doing?" And they're like, "Well, he's been in the closet with a handle of Jack Daniels talking about the Canadian Open, like mumbling to people about it."
Well, as soon as I said
Uh,
I'm from Canada, you could see your look changed a little bit, and it's like,
yeah.
oh, what's wrong with Canada? And now we'll soon
No,
find out why.
no, quite the opposite. I loved Canada. It was one of my favorite events to go to, especially when it was at Glen Abbey. I loved that golf course. Just loved everything about it. I had a good hotel I stayed at. I had a good restaurant down in the hotel. I mean, it was so comfortable and so familiar. And yeah, I had success there in the past, and I went there the 1 year and shot 66 the first round, if I remember right. Was up near the top, and then I shot 77 the second round and thought I'd missed the cut, and I ended up making it on the number. And then I went out on Saturday, and it was the firmest golf course I'd ever seen. It was rock hard that year. And I shot 64 in the wind on Saturday and moved all the way up to third place. And I got paired with Dustin Johnson, who had just won the U.S. Open a couple weeks before, and I got paired with him in the final round. And obviously I'm nervous. We're trying to chase down. I think it was Brant Snedeker he was in the final group with. There was a Canadian amateur. I think his name was Jared Dutois. I think he was actually in the final group with Snedeker. So anyway, so we start playing, and I got off to a fast start, and I was playing really really good solid golf the whole way, and I knew I was tied for the lead after I think it was like 7 or 8. And then there's that weird group of holes where you kind of go down in the ditch there and down in the whatever you want to call it, on the other side of the road. And so we go down the ditch, and I played 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I birdied 15, but I hadn't seen a leaderboard in a while. And I knew I birdied, what I birdied, 13 and 15, I think it was. And then I looked over and I saw the leaderboard, and I was at 12 under. Jonathan Vegas was at 12 under, and then he was already done. And the next closest was 9 under. And I had 3 holes to go, and 2 of which were short par fives, and one was a downwind par four. And for the first time, and this goes back to the sports psychology and the mental side of it, like for the first time all day, where I'd been like, work on the next shot, the next shot, the next shot. As soon as I saw that leaderboard, I go, oh my God, today's my day. Like today's the day it's going to happen. And I hit 3 perfect drives on 16, 17, 18. I hit a 5-iron just barely on 16. Went in the bunker. I was dead. I just knocked it in the middle of the green and 2 putted for par. And then I went to 17. I drove it too far, which I've never done in my life, actually. But I got it a little too close to the green. I only had like a 70-yard shot, and I just kind of slid under it a little bit, and it plugged in the front bunker. And I didn't get that up and down, so I made bogey. So then I had to birdie 18, which I hit a good drive, and I was just standing there, and I just remember how calm I was in the fairway and how cool it was looking up, and you see the big Canadian flag right behind the green, and there's people everywhere, and I was like, oh, this is such an awesome moment. Like, this is why I play golf. And I just remember how calm and at peace I was, and I hit a pretty good 4-iron. Obviously, I pulled it a little bit left, but that's, you're trying to take the water out of play, and it hits on the green and runs through into the bunker. And I got up there and I was like, this is a perfect lie. It was just sitting right up on top of the sand beautifully. And I actually said to my caddy right before I walked into the bunker, I was like, I think I can make this. Because if I pull it a little bit left, it actually funnels back to the right. And if I push it a little bit, it funnels back left. And I was like, I think I can make this and kind of win the tournament right here. And I got in there and I remember digging my feet in, and there was no sand underneath my feet. And I was like, nope, just trust it. There's going to be sand underneath the ball. And sure enough, there wasn't. And I guess I was the only tour player in the field that didn't know this, because I got texts from about 30 to 40 guys after that tournament saying, you didn't know there was no sand in those bunkers? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And it was ironic because my ball in the last hole had plugged because there was a bunch of sand. But yeah, so I bladed it basically into the water and I had to drop on the fringe, missed it, made bogey, and finished 5th, and cost myself a boatload of money, my best chance at a win, and I ended up losing my card at the end of that year as well. So tragic situation. If there was a do-over, believe me, I would love to go stand on that 16th tee box again and just
Not see the
give me those
leaderboard.
3 holes.
take that leaderboard down?
I'll find a way to get it home from there. I can promise you, looking back, I would do it differently mentally. I would not get ahead of myself like I did, but I didn't do it on purpose, obviously.
Yeah.
But that first thought came in, and I didn't, do enough to erase it and focus on one shot at a time, like they always say.
Wow.
But
Well,
no, it was an incredible week.
Reopen that wound, but it's
No, it was great. They actually were nice enough. They gave me a sponsor exemption back into the tournament the next year because they felt bad. And ironically, they redid all the bunkers about 2 months after we got done. Yeah, I was getting just when I started, that memory started to fade a little bit. I was getting all these mentions on Twitter one day, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And sure enough, there's backhoes, right at that bunker on 18, and they're pulling all the sand out and redoing the bunkers. And they're like, all this because of Wheatcroft and all this because of a bunker shot. And like, granted, it had been scheduled for a year and a half, but it made it look like because I hit a bad bunker shot, they were going to go in and redo the bunkers.
They should have a plaque on that bunker like they do with Tiger's shot on 18 from the fairway.
Yeah, that's what we need. Yep.
Two totally different outcomes, but
oh yeah, but hey, it is what it is. You live and you learn, right?
And I appreciate you coming on the show. I know you got to go. I don't want to take all your time here, but it was great having this conversation with you. And hopefully somebody out there will see this podcast and take something away from it. But it was great meeting you and hearing your stories and what you're trying to do for men's mental health. And I wish you nothing but the best. And congratulations again on the 13 months.
I appreciate that, Steve. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Take care.
It is actually a sign of strength to admit that you are struggling with your mental health. So I think if you're at that point that you're able to actually reach out and seek help, whether it be through a family member, a friend, or a professional, it's the opposite of weakness.